The well-being of children and young adults in Nigeria cannot be undermined. As such, improving the conditions of this category of persons in custodial centers is critical. The Ministry of Interior, in its assessment of the situation of children and young adults deprived of liberty in Nigeria, shows that the survey of no data for arrested children is 43.2%, while for the ones with database is 41.7%, and others is 16.1%, indicating a poor detention. Reports have it that across the nation, many young people are deprived of their liberty in facilities that often fail to meet their basic needs and rights. As the Ministry of Interior, in collaboration with other related associates, marked the launch of a crucial report that sheds light on the challenges within these centers and highlights the steps needed to ensure a more humane and rehabilitative environment. Nigeria today focuses on exploring solutions to a better future for the children and young adults in Nigeria. Thanks for joining us. I am Eukaria Clinton, and this is Nigeria Today. Now, with me in the studio for today's conversation is Chris Odili Enea. He's a chairman, Board of Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, PRAWA. You're welcome to Nigeria Today.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Also with us for the conversation is Mona Aika. She's the Child Protection Manager, UNICEF. You're welcome to Nigeria Today.
Thank you very much, Eukaria.
Now, I would have said ladies first, but let me start with Chris today.
No
So, Chris, now, apart from the introduction we just heard during the intro, we also have the reports, of course, which was launched today. According to the report, it says 74% of children and young adults in Nigeria in postal institutions and custodial centers are either awaiting trial or awaiting report, while only 26% have been convicted. You know, one we want to know, why do we have this kind of situation?
Well, it's a very distressing and unfortunate situation that should not be allowed to happen. And that is why PRAWA has we've made it our life work to work with the system via advocacy, via working through programs, to be sure that there's a human face in all the facets of the criminal justice system. And if you may recall, PRAWA, through advocacy and working with all the parliament and whatever, we got the name to change from prisons, Nigerian prisons, to Nigerian Correctional Service, because that's what it's supposed to do. And we are working also to make sure that what we're just discussing tonight does not happen again. We are happy that from the top we receive assurances that is an aberration. So it's something that must not be allowed to continue. We cannot allow young people in their formative years of their lives to have an experience where they are deprived of being properly socialized to become good citizens, knowing their culture, their morals, their norms. And then they get a negative socialization in these institutions that makes them to become negative contributors to the national economy. So it's something that we're working hard to make sure that is corrected. Thank you.
So, now, Mona, I haven't heard the situation like from what he's saying. It's not really too good of a situation. Now, tell us because I know you focus on the children and of course the young adults. Like he rightly said, they're in their formative years. Being deprived of their liberty is not something that's too good. Now, how does these conditions, impact their mental, and physical well-being?
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Ministry of Interior and Power in particular for launching this groundbreaking report. It is very alarming indeed to see the statistics and the number of children in custody. The average is about 133,906 children are in custody. That's approximately 26,000 children annually on an annual basis. This is indeed very alarming. And in these institutions where children are kept, they are very poor conditions. There is overcrowding. There is poor health and sanitation. And all of this has a negative impact on the child's psychology. The mental health of a child at an early age, they need to grow, to thrive. All that is destroyed when they are kept in confinement, in a room, in a cell that's having a lot of people in one place. So that already affects their psychology. They cannot be able to grow and think and enjoy their basic rights, such as development, education, even getting mental health and psychosocial support that they need for the wrong that they may have committed. And what is more alarming is the reasons these children are actually kept in custody are very, very bizarre. We're seeing that children are, being detained because of committing minor offenses.
Such as?
Theft, wandering, loitering in the streets, or not obeying or listening to their parents, not following what they're told. So they end up, in disagreement, they end up on the streets, and then they're kept in confinement. So all of this requires an urgent action to address this situation.
Now back to you, Chris. Just like Mona said, some of them are kept for some minor, reasons. They are there. Like the figure rightly says, 74% are waiting trial. Some don't even know their fate. They are just there. So, what are some of the challenges they face in trying to, get justice?
Yeah. Let me start by making this statement. I think it's important for all of us, especially as Nigerians, to understand that the thing that makes all of us equal is our Nigerian citizenship. And if we accept that notion that we are all Nigerians, it means that we really have to treat one another with some degree of respect of our integrity and of our persons. In the African culture, children are very important. Children and women are very important, and men, in society where men are men, we take every action to protect the women and the children, because the children are the future of the country. So, starting right from the man who makes the arrest, must make the arrest looking at that child, that this child could have been my own child, and that first he's a Nigerian, that my job is to protect. And when he goes through the legal processes, whoever is the judge or magistrate that is trying these minors must also first remember, I'm a Nigerian, this child is a Nigerian, and is a child. So until you bring the understanding to understand who they are, where they are, then you will apply law to them relative to their age, knowing that what you want to do is to correct them and not to punish them. So it must come right through the system, and that is why we in Power are involved in this advocacy, working with different partners to be sure that in different areas we do the training, do the reorientation, at least from police to the prison, to the correctional staff, and right through the system, to begin to treat those people as human beings first. See the common humanity between us. And it is when you have that understanding that you begin to work differently. So that attitudinal change is necessary at this point in time. And we need to make that change, because we are only creating problems for ourselves. When we make children that are aggrieved, they'll become aggrieved and begin to see society as against them. So they also will develop their own defense mechanisms to fight back at the society. And the result you get is some of what you are seeing around here. So it's a task we must take on.
Now back to you, Mona. He has said something that we should realize that these children are children. You know, oftentimes you see people kind of forgetting that irrespective of whatever they must have done, they are still children. So how important is it for us to realize, like he rightly said, that they are children, and what should be done to ensure that these children, their rights are protected, even while in custody?
Yes. Indeed, they are children, and we should always ensure that the best interest of the child, that principle, is maintained regardless of where the situation the child is at. And most importantly, when they are in contact or in conflict with the law, the caregivers, the justice sector, from the police to the courts, we need to ensure that they provide the necessary care the child requires. And it's not just one individual, one sector. A child has multiple vulnerability. They may be detained because they have stolen something small from a neighbor. It could be a chicken, could be anything. But what is really the underlying reason for this child to steal that item, to steal that chicken from the neighbor? Is the child okay at home? Are the parents fine? Are they providing for this child? Are they listening to the child? So it's really important as we look into this. It's not just to look at the end action that was done by the child because of whatever reasoning they may have had at that time, but it's more and more to ensure when they have committed an offense, due process is followed, and most importantly, their best interests are observed as a fundamental right, so that they can be corrected, they can be assisted to get the justice that they need.
Now, Chris, over to you again. Now we're looking at the, the condition of the custodial centers. Like Mona said earlier on, the custodial center, the conditions they find, these centers are not really in good shape. Thereby affecting the children mentally, psychologically, and overall their well-being. So what can be done to improve these centers, or what areas need to be improved upon to ensure that these children, even though in custody for those that have been convicted, that at the end of the day when they come out, they are refined and can really integrate into the society?
Yeah, I think a few times I visited a number of the correctional centers. What you observe is that each one, without exception, is overcrowded. Even if it is meant for adults, it's overcrowded for the adults, because a correctional center that is made to hold maybe 800 people or 1,000 is holding 4,000 people. That is even for normal, people that have committed crimes or whatever, in the adults population. Then you can imagine that on top of that, inside this kind of a crowded place for adults, you're now bringing children to add to that environment. It is beyond description. It is beyond description, because already the number has overwhelmed the capacity of everything, whether it's toilet that you're providing, whether it's water, everything you're providing is already overwhelmed by the sheer number. So, to start with, under no circumstances must children be incarcerated in the same environment with adults, because children have their own special needs. So it has to be a conscious effort that is made. And I go back to what I said at the beginning. It is when you begin to treat other human beings as if they are yourself. Say, do unto others as we wish to be done to. And we have to begin to treat each other as Nigerians with some degree of respect and consideration. Because we're not, the behaviors as if we're treating these people as if they are aliens. They are not Nigerian, but they are our children. They are one of us. And the purpose is to correct, to change, to reform, to make them to come out better trained, better informed, to play their role in the society. Because everyone in this society, everyone is needed to add his own little contribution to make this country what we want it to be. So first and foremost is to make that definition to say, if this place is designed to hold 1,000, under no circumstances should we make 5,000 people to stay in a place that is provided for only 1,000. And there must be a distinction that no children should be in the same holding place where you have adults, where there's already no space. So because what you do is just to push them inside there, and what happens? You have some very hardened criminals seeing these little children, they begin to teach them all kinds of funny tricks. And because they're children, they learn so fast, and they will become worse criminals than those teaching them. And that's not what we need in Nigeria. So we must be a nation that shows compassion to everyone, but more especially to the most vulnerable in our midst.
Yes, we will show compassion to the most vulnerable in our midst. Like I asked him earlier, the reintegration aspect, trying to bring them back into the society. Now, why is it important to provide, educational and vocational training within these facilities, for these young people, to be easily reintegrated into the society? Because oftentimes, like he said, they become worse than they were before they got in there. So how important is it to give them some kind of skills that when they come in, it will not be difficult for them to, fit into the society?
Well, we're talking here mainly from the beginning of this conversation, we've been talking about detention and how to improve those detentions. But if you look at it in all its totality, there are alternative ways where we can still correct this child and rehabilitate them from the wrong that they have done. It is important to also look at diversion programs where children can be diverted from the formal legal system and be corrected within the community. We're advocating for restorative justice. How can we engage the community, from the person whose property has been taken, to the child and the family concerned, to sit down together with somebody as a mediator to discuss and see how best to resolve this. Community engagement also is extremely important so that children can actually be reintegrated back into the communities. So if they are in the detention centers, there should be programs in place that can actually support their well-being and prepare them to be reintegrated back to the communities. While in those detentions, it's important, of course, to ensure the environment is safe, but we are advocating for diversion programs so that children can live within the family environment and enjoy their rights while still be corrected and rehabilitated from the wrong that they have done. And while in those serving custodial sentences, it's important to ensure that their development aspects, from being taught, their education to life skills, to be able to acquire skills that can help them, be able to earn when they're out and support the little things that they can do for their own well-being. But all in all, the key advocacy here is to ensure that children receive non-custodial sentences in the first place, especially for these minor offenses that can actually be dealt with, corrected within the community, within the home. So I see an important role for the parents or the caregivers of the children concerned. And it's also important to look at how best we can prevent that wrongdoing from happening. Important to look at the parenting programs that can be targeting the parents of children of different age categories, from the early childhood phase to adolescent, where they've started to develop and understand themselves better and they feel that they know everything. How best can parents engage with their children? How best can parents understand the different milestones their child is going through? They may appear as difficult, they may appear as stubborn, but they are also going through different hormonal processes within their bodies. And parents, caregivers, teachers, the community at large needs to understand that to better care for the children, to avoid them from committing the offense in the first place.
Now back to you, the Prower. Now we're talking about this report. Now, how can these findings, this newly launched report, be used to influence the policy changes? Because you talked about so many things that should be put in place. How can it help to influence the policy changes so that we have, better custodial centers? And of course, what she said, there are even situations that the children don't even need to be there in the first place, because at the community level, certain things can be handled.
I think at this point in time, I would say we are really privileged and lucky to have the person who is at the head of the Ministry of Interior. Leadership is just what it is. If somebody is ready to lead, what it means that all the different components will follow. And he has given his pledge. Said it, that with understanding. Say, I know the issues. I know how to go about it. And that this report that is presented, she made a lot of advocacy, for which I commend her. And there was a statement she made that I would wish she repeats it. If she doesn't repeat it, I would repeat it. So, when at the leadership level, we own the problem and we own the solution, then everything will fall in place. What has been happening in the past is when you have absence of leadership. So there is nobody putting the other person's leg on the fire. All of us went through schools. If we were just left alone, nobody will do anything. But the teachers, the headmasters, it's the only way if you want to stay in our school. So, and that is where the Minister of Interior is taking it. And he's making it through every segment of what he is working with. And today, he made a pledge. Say, hold me accountable. I am going to see that this thing goes through. And he will, I'm sure with this kind of personality, he will get the cooperation of everybody because it's in our long-term best interest. These are the kind of little things that matter, that restores our humanity as a nation. There is a saying that how a nation treats the most vulnerable of this population, that is what shows the barometer of the humanity of that country. So it is important. If anything, we have to make a 360-degree change from where we're coming from.
Certainly we do that, because just like you said, the leadership, they are ready, and given their commitment.
So we have that commitment from that leadership, and I believe in. So ours at Prower, we've pledged our support for him. We have pledged that we're ready to work with other stakeholders in the different nitty-gritty components that will ensure that these programs carry through. It is a project that we're very proud to have been a part of, and we'll be very glad to be part of seeing that it is done.
Thank you very much. Now, Mona, wanted to tell us, talk to us about some of the lessons from other countries, some good things that we should, pick and replicate here in our country to make us better. Right. We're looking for the way forward.
Absolutely. There are a lot of examples across the world, within this continent, Africa, and also outside the continent, and even in Nigeria. I'll start off with the examples in Nigeria. There are some diversion programs already implemented. We have started that. UNICEF is supporting some of the diversion programs in places like Kano, where children are diverted from the formal justice system, especially for those that have committed minor offenses, and rehabilitated within the community. So definitely diversion programs work. We see countries like Tanzania, Malawi, South Africa, all using these diversion programs, and they're working. And for those children who are in custody and they require legal representation, another very important aspect to consider as we see through the justice reforms, the child justice reforms that are very much needed in the country.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And this is where we stop for today. But for us, we must appreciate
we must
Mona
get that quote. Let me quote her.
No, before you quote her. Okay, just quickly. What's the quote?
I think I mentioned...
She may not remember.
Okay.
She said that no society should allow the minor mistakes of minors to become a major hindrance that will impede their future.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And, we had Mona Aika, the Child Protection Manager, UNICEF. Thank you so much for your time and your contribution. And we also had Chris Odili Enea, the Chairman, Board of Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, PRAWA. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
And thank you for being part of the program. Don't forget, Nigeria Today airs every weekday at 7:30 p.m. on NTA News24. You can also check out this episode and others on www.youtube.com/NTA News24 Hub. Once again, thank you for being there. I am Ikaria Clinton. Goodbye.